All right, welcome back for another deep dive. You know how much we love to unpack these fascinating topics, and uh, for those of you who've been with us a while, you'll remember our deep dives into eclipses and all those crazy cat myths.
Yeah, those are fun.
They really were. But we're moving on. Today we're stepping into a world that's a little closer to home. A world of everyday superstitions. You know, those quirky little beliefs that we sometimes catch ourselves following, even when we know they might not make a whole lot of sense.
I do that all the time.
You too.
Oh,
So let's unpack some of these common superstitions. Let's explore where they came from, and maybe even more interesting is why they stick around even in our modern world. I'm so curious to hear your take on this.
well, I think it's all about how our brains are wired. We're always looking for patterns and trying to make sense of things. Superstitions kind of offer this sense of order in a world that can feel pretty chaotic sometimes.
That's a great point. It's like we want to believe that we have some kind of control, even if it's just through these little rituals.
Mm.
So let's start with a classic, knocking on wood. How many of you out there have done that? I know I have countless times. You say something positive, and then you just have this urge to tap on something wooden. Why do we do that?
Well, the origins of this one go way back. Ancient people believed that spirits lived in trees, right? So knocking on wood was a way to sort of appease those spirits and ask for their protection. Like,
Oh.
hey, don't let anything bad happen now that I've said this good thing.
So it's like we're still carrying on this tradition, even though most of us don't believe in tree spirits anymore.
Right. It's become this ingrained behavior. Like it's just become part of our culture.
Exactly. Okay, so let's move on to another one that always makes me a little nervous. Walking under a ladder. Even though logically I know it's not going to make a difference, I still try to avoid it. What's the story behind this one?
This superstition has its roots in medieval times. Back then, a ladder leaning against a wall formed a triangle shape. And, the triangle was a very important symbol, especially in Christianity, representing the Holy Trinity.
Oh, yeah. So walking under a ladder was seen as like violating this sacred space.
Exactly. It was considered disrespectful, and people believed it would bring bad luck.
I can see how that would have been a powerful belief back then. But like you said earlier, it's interesting how these things stick around. But isn't there also a very practical reason to avoid walking under ladders? Like, isn't it just a safety hazard?
You're absolutely right. There's always that element of real danger. I mean, something could fall on you or the ladder could topple over.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Maybe sometimes we mix up the genuine risk with the superstition.
Right. It becomes hard to separate the two.
Okay, so let's talk about a superstition that has some pretty serious consequences. Breaking a mirror. 7 years bad luck. That's a long time.
This belief goes back to the ancient Romans. They believed that mirrors actually reflected a person's soul. So if you broke a mirror, it was like damaging a part of yourself.
Whoa. That's a pretty intense belief.
It is. And the whole 7 years thing, oh, well, there was this ancient idea that the human body completely regenerates every 7 years. So maybe they thought it took that long for your soul to recover from the shock.
That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
But honestly, breaking a mirror, isn't it just a really big mess to clean up more than anything else?
Absolutely. It's definitely more of a practical problem than a spiritual one.
Okay, last superstition for today. Opening an umbrella indoors. Why is this one considered bad luck?
Well, there are actually a couple of theories about this. One has to do with the history of umbrellas themselves. Back in Victorian England, umbrellas were these new spring-loaded contraptions, and they were known to cause injuries if you open them up inside the house.
Oh, ouch. I can see how that would make people a little superstitious about opening umbrellas indoors.
Exactly. But there's another theory that's a bit more symbolic. In ancient Egypt, umbrellas were associated with the sun god. So opening one indoors where the sun couldn't reach was seen as like disrespecting the sun god and inviting misfortune.
Oh, that's interesting. So you've got these practical concerns about causing injuries, Andy, these symbolic concerns about offending the gods. It seems like we humans have a way of finding reasons to be superstitious.
We do, but I think at the core of it all is this desire for control and predictability in a world that's often unpredictable.
Exactly. I think that's a really important takeaway from our deep dive today. We've explored these common superstitions, learned about their origins, and maybe even gained a little insight into why we still cling to them. But what do we do with this information? How can we incorporate it into our lives? That's something I'd love for everyone to think about.
Me too. I think the key is to be aware of our own tendencies to seek out patterns and explanations, even when they might not be there. And to remember that sometimes things just happen. We don't always need to find a reason or blame it on bad luck. So true. Maybe by understanding these superstitions a little better, we can start to let go of some of those irrational fears and embrace a more rational and confident approach to life.
Absolutely.
So the next time you catch yourself knocking on wood or avoiding a ladder, take a moment to reflect. Think about why you're doing it and what it reveals about your own need for control. And maybe, just maybe, you can laugh it off and move forward with a little less superstition and a little more
I
confidence.
like that.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those minds open.
Bye, everyone.
See you later.